Hi.
Oh my gosh. Okay, it's working.
Hi, Anna. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like,
Me
love.
too. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being on tonight.
Of
So
course.
I wanted to, part of the series for Earth Month was to really start creating a lot of content and really connecting back in with some of our customers. You've been one of our customers for about over a year now.
Yeah.
And, I think you're one of our top customers and we have a really nice relationship. So definitely wanted to have you join in. Your Instagram is amazing. You have a lot of cool recipes on there. So and I know you use it in your food, so I wanted you to be on here to share how you use it and, also tell us a little bit about your story. So I'll go ahead and kick it off to you just to give us a little introduction of who you are and all the good stuff.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Um, so I'm Anna. I actually first discovered sea moss back in 2013. My dad was diagnosed with lung cancer, and he started like traditional Western medicine path of chemotherapy and radiation and stuff. And I started looking at alternatives because that some of those forms weren't really working, and I just really wanted to see him like have vitality. And so I started researching different like herbs and holistic remedies, and I came across moss gel actually. And it was like back then, not very many people were talking about it. I couldn't find it. I was looking for it. Yeah, I couldn't find it. Came across it again in 2018. I saw some people selling it on Etsy, but I just wasn't sure about the source because I started reading about people that were growing it in pools and just like a little bit sketched out about the water source, etc. And then in 2020, and I was like, okay, I just need to find stuff. I need to start using it because it keeps coming up everywhere. And yeah, and I actually connected with you guys through a friend.
Nice. Yeah, because you guys, so, and like, I was always wondering, like, how abundant is it in California? Because you guys are based out of California, right?
uh, California. So it's kind of been picking up as more people have like discovered it and discovered like how powerful it is and how it's such like an incredible superfood. I use it every single day. I take it internally and then I also use it as a face mask. But it's definitely picked up. I feel like LA is pretty much on like the up and up in terms of like health trends, but I really don't believe this is just like a trend or a
Yeah.
fad. I think this is one of like the most healing, powerful superfoods that should be incorporated.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that because I think the same thing, and I also feel like it's the way of eating in the future because it's so nutrient dense.
Yeah.
And as we move into a future that we're gonna have a lot more climate issues, we're gonna see a reduction in some of our food supplies, things like that. And so one of the interesting things that I've been doing a lot of research on is how this plant and other sea plants are part of what's considered the blue economy, where it's regenerative. It's, you're making sure you're doing practices that are sustainable, like ocean harvesting some of the sea plants. And again, it's not just sea moss, it's kelp, it's other sea plants that we consume. So
Right. What was that called? It was called
it's
Blue.
it's called the blue economy. So it's a part of a new economy that's coming out.
Yeah.
And it's what it is. It's a regenerative type of economy. So you are building up the ecosystems in the ocean as you provide plants back. And so it's like this regenerative form of harvesting all sea plants. And when you do that, you're capturing carbon from the atmosphere. So sea plants have a two times more of a carbon capture than land plants. But in addition, it provides 50% of our oxygen to the land. So all humans and animals on the planet or land animals, we receive 50% of our oxygen from the ocean. So it's doing like this two level or two tier thing, or many actually ways of the sea plant coming through. So it's really important. The blue economy is really interesting. So do some research once you have some time. I know you're big into sustainability as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And so I actually studied food studies in college, and regenerative agriculture was one of the things that I studied. And I learned like all about food sustainability and how much food we're wasting and how
Yeah.
our systems have completely like been ruined. And that's what really got me into learning about more so micronutrients and how our like how one carrot today doesn't get as many nutrients as it did like say 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And
No, we're killing the soil.
yeah, so that's why like getting the minerals and a lot of the nutrients and antioxidants from the sea, I think, is so incredibly important. And that's
Hmm.
rich in the
The other interesting thing is that the sea plants, because they move with the ocean, a
Mhm.
lot of times we think that it needs to anchor in to receive the nutrients from the rocks or the reefs. And really, the salt water, the ocean water, is what is fueling the nutrients in the plants. I think the biggest misconception is, or the biggest point when you're looking for sea moss is to make sure that it's grown in clean waters, because that's where the plant is going to receive all its nutrients from. Okay, so I want to know more about how your father did with the sea moss therapy when he started taking it. Did he see a difference?
So I actually wasn't able to get any for him
Oh,
at the time. Like I found like a couple of sources online, but it was like very full, and I was also looking at different herbs that I was on like on wait lists for. Like, people weren't really speaking about these type of remedies. However, my uncle actually, who he has like he's had cancer and stuff before, like more so like skin cancer, but he's a long time smoker, and he's been taking it for about 6 months now. His smoker's cough is like pretty much gone, which is
wow.
incredible. Like he swears by this stuff.
Yeah.
So I've noticed like a difference just in like other like family members and friends that are taking it. I've noticed a difference in my skin. I feel like it's
Hmm.
glowing on a whole new level, like
Hmm. Yeah.
day. But
Yeah, I like using it on my skin too. I have a couple friends that like do like a whole body bath of sea moss, like, and they put it all over just to tighten and firm their skin up. So,
oh,
or even the mask, like adding turmeric into the gel and making a sea moss mask. But my favorite thing about you is the content that you create and your recipes. Like you have like the coolest recipes. So tell me, like, how do you, I know you studied nutrition, but like, how do you come up with some of these recipes? They're so beautiful.
oh my goodness, thank you. Well, I've actually been, I guess, like studying superfoods for a few years now. I worked at a couple different juice bars, and my first job was actually at this like raw vegan juicery. And then I worked at another juice bar, and I've constantly been like, picking up knowledge about different ingredients and all of them. And I think just by spending a lot of time online, a lot of time on Instagram, watching YouTube videos, looking at different like, new herbal foods, superfoods, nutrients, etc. I've been making it for myself for a while too, just experimenting with like every time I go to the farmer's market or the grocery store, I try to like buy an abundance of like fruits and vegetables because the microbiome
Hmm.
like most healthy when you have like a ton of different plant foods rather than just eating the same thing every single day. So like my smoothies and stuff, I try and always like incorporate fruits that I probably wouldn't typically eat just so that I introduce them to my microbiome. But I think that I'm also very creative.
You
I,
are.
I
I saw your mocktail. I'm like, oh my God, that is so cool.
thank you. Yeah, I just love like it's kind of my creative outlet.
Uh, it's like I would have never thought anyone to create a mocktail with sea moss. Like, we use it in our smoothies. I use it in like soups, like really kind of straightforward ways. But you're creating like really beautiful masterpieces with the sea moss.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of different other recipe ideas coming too. My latest, I love freezing it into cubes,
Mm-hmm.
putting different cubes, like I did some with cucumber, aloe, and the sea moss gel, and I put them on my, it was amazing. And then I added them to my smoothie, and I felt like I was drinking like a, it was just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so I saw that you're doing something you're doing a collaboration with like what is it, like peanut butter bars, chocolate peanut butter bars. Tell me about that. Like how are you infusing the sea moss into that?
Okay, so that's where we use the Irish sea moss, and
Mm.
because that form is easier to dehydrate than the Gracilaria sauce. But
So do you powder it?
yeah, so it's the powdered version.
Oh, so you
So
okay, so do you dehydrate it and then like grind it down?
exactly.
But that's still a really cool way to use the sea plant, and it's still like, who would have thought to add it into a peanut butter bar?
Yeah, I know. It's just like another way that people can take it.
Hmm.
Um, trying to come up with like the easiest ways for people to make their sea moss because some people don't like the taste of it. I
Yeah.
like, what are your thoughts on the taste?
Well, so I am super cool with the golden sea moss. Like that is like easy, but I tell you, the purple sea moss is a little hard for me. Like that one is you have to really dress it up to because it is, it is it's a fresher sea moss. It's the way that it's dried and it's cured, it's different. It's not, the salt isn't sweated out like the gold. The gold sits underneath plastic to sweat out the salt. So it's a little, the purple's a little too much for me. But what about you? Do you like it? I see you guys add elderberry into that.
Yeah, so we make our own elderberry tea that's for around 48 hours, and then we use that elderberry tea to blend with the sea moss.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more potent in terms of elderberry, but when most people try it, they like don't expect for it to taste like that. Because typically, when people take elderberry products, it has like other sugars added
Yeah.
or sweeteners and stuff. So they're a little bit like, "Whoa, this is what elderberry tastes like." I'm like, yeah, and with purple sea moss. Um, so I personally, I love the gold. I love just adding a little bit of honey or cinnamon, or I kind of just like it by itself now.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it's
It's
just
easier that way too, because you just take it, and I'm not that brave, but I know a lot of people that can take it in a spoon and just take it like in a daily dose that way. So I'm not that brave. I need it in my smoothie. I need to add it into something.
right, right. How did you first discover it?
So Nelson, my partner, he's from Saint Lucia, and we started using it. Gosh, probably in 20. We started using regularly like in 2016.
Wow.
I was always scared of sea moss because normally, like they were using it like in the Caribbean, they use it like in peanut punch, and that was too thick of a consistency for me. So, but when he was like, you should really try it. It's really good, and I tried it in a smoothie. I was like, I can't taste this. And I've always seen the benefits, like energy wise. Like I can tell, like when I'm not drinking sea moss, and when I could see the difference. Like if I'm not using it regularly, I can see my energy levels drop. I love using it on my skin because it really makes my skin like nice and firm.
Yeah, same. That's what I've noticed. That's the biggest difference.
It's like an anti-ager, 100%. But it is, like a lot of people that suffer from skin illnesses, the sea moss is really good because of the levels of iodine, that's inside of the sea moss. So, that I've heard of people taking it for their psoriasis, and it clears up their psoriasis. It helps them a lot. And then, what's another one? Joint pains and issues. People that I know that have like joint discomfort, it helps them and kind of like build some of the collagen in those areas. Um, yeah. So yeah, we've been taking it for quite some years now.
Wow, it's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so many benefits to it. I'm just like, it's
it does. It does. And I think, I I think that as the world begins to know about the many benefits, it's important to understand where the source is coming from, and also make sure that we're doing our best not to overconsume the wild harvested sea moss, because I think that's, you know, for me, that's one of the things that I want to make sure that as I create any product or do anything, it's not taking and depleting from one source, especially a natural environment that really needs those plants to survive and thrive, because that's part of the ecosystem. So that was really important for us to make sure that whatever we were doing is that there's basically circularity put into the concept and the strategy of the product and the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I see you guys also give back to a nonprofit.
Yes. So it's like called Coral Reef Restoration, and that's kind of like a whole, like one of my main passions actually. So I went and saw the Great Barrier Reef back in 2019, and saw how bleached the coral was, and it's always been in the back of my mind that I really want something in terms of helping to restore the coral and like trying to figure out what we can really do. So when I like learned more about the sustainability, and like especially everyone told me about the sustainability of like how you grow the sea moss and stuff, it's kind of like sparked an idea in my mind. There's a way that I really want to give back, and that's kind of the perfect way. Reef restoration, and then just bringing a lot more education around like wild harvested versus like ocean harvested.
Yeah.
Ocean moss. And I think that that's like, I feel like there's a lot of like mislabeling on the internet, and it's very confusing.
It is. It is. And even like the whole pool grown. So when I decided to really start, I felt like I needed to really understand the different, you know, types of sea moss. So when I started doing in-depth research, what I found was that pool grown isn't as normal as people make it sound, like make it out to be. Number one, it's a marketing tactic, right? It's like, hey, come over here because theirs might be pool grown. But the most of the pool grown sea moss is in fact only used for animal consumption. So normally they use the pool grown sea moss to give to the animals and then feed. But the other piece about it is that to create a pool environment for sea moss, it's really hard. Like it's expensive, it's really hard. It's not something that is as big as it's made to sound like. You know, we have a lot of pool grown sea moss. Again, what I feel is the most important thing is when you're looking for sea moss is to make sure that wherever you're getting it from, the waters are clean and not polluted. And unfortunately, you know, we're living in a time where a lot of our ocean waters are highly polluted.
Right.
I think it's just making sure that it's an area that's not high in traffic, cargo traffic and whatnot, and that there are some efforts being made to restore the ocean.
Definitely. So I actually got a question today about microplastics and if that's tested. And from my, like, of course, I try and limit my consumption of beverages and food in plastics because of the microplastics. But I feel like they're everywhere.
They are. They're
all
at this point. They
like,
are
everywhere.
I think, you know, even like they just recently came out with some articles or publications saying that we are so inundated with microplastics that it's even been found in the depths of our lung tissue. So at this point, it's really just circulating within our bodies. Almost every human on this planet has microplastics inside of their bodies. And I believe it's the same for the ocean and, you know, the soil as well. I think that there's a lot of areas where there's agriculture and plastic is the main product that's used to either tie up the produce to you know, to whenever they use ropes and things like that. So I think, you know, it's making, I don't know, there needs to be such a huge transformation when it comes to what we have going on the planet right now. And,
Definitely.
and I think, so, there are certain things I feel like we have control over, and there's a lot of things that we don't have control over. But I think the thing that we have the most control over as CMOS farmers and businesses is that we are getting it from a location where the waters are clean, where they're not diving down into the ocean, taking away from natural habitats, and that they're looking for different ways to harvest it without using so many plastics.
Definitely. I think that's like extremely important. And you said harvest without using a lot of plastics. Is there like a way that they typically do it?
So a lot of the ropes are nylon and things like that, and I think this is a global, it's a global thing. I think until the markets come out with more sustainable products, it doesn't matter, what you're harvesting in the ocean. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess, wear and tear on the products that they use once you put it in ocean water. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of erosion on the ropes and things like that. So most of the ropes that's used in all ocean harvesting is their nylon ropes and
So-
or some form of plastics that they grab. But mostly it's the nylon.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the part that is just, I guess for the future ocean harvesters, like trying to figure out what products people can use. But again, that blue economy, if you look it up, it's really interesting. It's a lot of research. There's a lot of funding in that space. You're able to create an ecosystem in the ocean that is regenerative as well.
That's absolutely incredible. I literally cannot wait to dive in. I'm gonna read every single aspect of that. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot of information. If you look at the World Economic Forum, that's probably the best place to go to when it comes to sustainability and the future of the world in terms of cities, economies, innovation. That's the place to go for your research.
wow. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
And where do you see like CMOS go? Do you think because I know that you mentioned something about it feeding people. I,
Yeah, so I think, for me, I believe that we are at a brink of a moment. As you know, the soil, is the nutrients in the soils are depleting. And what does that look like? Once the soil dies, there's no way you can't grow anything in that soil anymore. The more pesticides that we use in the land, and we're not using restorative kind of ways of regenerating that soil, we're gonna see a lot more food scarcity. So I think that the future of food, and again, not only am I saying this, but I've seen it a lot on the World Economic Forum, is they're looking at sea plants as a future of food because most sea plants are high, they have a lot of nutrients, not just sea moss, but kelp, right? Or some of the other sea plants that are used in Asia, right? So, again, there's a lot of new information coming about sea plants. And the fact that you don't need fertilizer to grow sea plants, right? So you don't need to create this environment that is so manipulated. The only manipulation that's happening with, like, for instance, kelp and sea moss is just the regenerative, or what is it called? Uh, what is that form where you cut the plant and you let it grow? It was like can't
oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
propagation. I'm like, what is that? Self-propagation. So the plants, grow on their own
Mhm.
once you clip them, right? So if that's the only manipulation that CMOS has, and you're growing them on like these nylon ropes, and they grow big, like, but in 6 weeks they're huge. It's like giving you a lot of CMOS in just 6 weeks. But so that's one thing I see. I think that, the more that we have to look at alternative foods, that's CMOS is definitely going to be one of them. There's so many cool things happening with algae. on overall, right? So the fashion industry is starting to look at algae, especially in Australia. There's a lot of innovative things coming out of Australia where how they can use different types of algae to create fabrics. There's also biofuels that you can, create and use with, some of these sea plants, and not just sea moss, but the other type of sea plants that are out there. Fertilizer.
Wow.
If you're someone that has your own garden, you can you dehydrate your Irish moss, right? So you could do the same thing with regular sea moss, dehydrate it, grind it down, and put it out in the soil.
So I actually sometimes, like when I'm down like the last bit in my jar, I'll fill it with water and just water my plants.
And
And
do they come out stronger?
yes, I feel like all my plants are thriving. I'm like, I'm thriving, my plants are thriving, and I think it's because the minerals in the soil or in the sea
In the
moss,
sea
right?
moss. Yeah. So I go to a yoga studio and her plant was dying and she started throwing some sea moss in the plant soil and the plant went from brown to green.
That's amazing. I also I think it's so interesting like what you told me about the Irish back in during the Irish like famine the
Yeah. So yeah, so the Irish were during the potato famine, they needed some food and nutrients and they started exploring with the Irish moss. And so again, that was this whole miscommunication, and I don't think it's intentional, but people were always calling it Irish moss in the Caribbean, not knowing that there's really there's several, not just that's just one or two, but there's several species of sea plants, right? Many different actually, but the ones that we're using as sea moss for food purposes is the Irish moss, the Gracilaria, and I can't pronounce the other one. It starts with the E. I can't remember how to pronounce it. But though the latter two, the Gracilaria and the other one, they grow abundantly in the Caribbean, and it's something that you know, they started using, by just grabbing off the ocean, off the shorelines, and adding it into their foods. But the Irish moss was something that was used by the Irish during the potato famine to, make them strong and make sure they were satiated during that time.
Wow, that's just like it's so incredible. And what was I gonna say? I feel like the so there's like the gold sea moss and then the purple sea moss. What about full spectrum? Because I get asked about full spectrum all the time and what the difference is. And from my understanding, like full spectrum is like the rainbow sea moss. Um,
And I think you can look at it as when it comes to different colors, like you would look at any other foods, right? Like your purple cabbage is going to have higher antioxidants, and your grapes are going to have higher antioxidants. And maybe where your kale is giving you more of the what's that? The green element in the plant. Can't think of that either. Chlorophyll. I'm like, why can't I
chlorophyll.
think of words? But so it's the same thing, right? So you're gonna have the purple plant is gonna give you more of the antioxidant, a lot more iodine because it naturally has iodine and salt. So that was one of the cool things that I learned while I was in St. Lucia is, or as I observed it myself, like when you're drying out the sea moss in the air, it doesn't sweat out the salt like the golden. The golden is like again under tarps and it's under the sun, so it's really hot and it's sweating out all the salt. Whereas the purple and the green and even the other colors, they're hung out to dry, and so they're not sweating out all that salt. And the cool thing is that these plants have all the salt within their composition, and as they start to dry out, you can see the basically like the crystallization of the salt on that plant coming out on its own. It's beautiful. It's amazing. I didn't know that until I saw it for myself. So sometimes you'll see where I think I've sent you some sea moss, purple sea moss, where it has more salt. And it's just that as that plant comes out and it hasn't sweated all its salt out, it's going to continue to make its own salt. I've read that sometimes some markets throw salt on their sea moss as a way of preserving it. We don't do that. But there are some markets that do that. Again, the purple is, has the high levels of antioxidants. I think the green has, more chlorophyll in it. And then we really just do the green and the purple. So it's not too much of a, too many other variations outside of the golden. We don't have too many other colors outside of that.
Okay. But would you say would you say that full spectrum is better, or?
I think I think you're gonna get the minerals. I think really whatever plant you're eating is really the minerals that are coming from the ocean that you're gonna consume. And that's, basically that's the bottom line. The colors just add a little extra to it, right? Whether it's the purple when you're getting a lot more antioxidants, or it's the green where you're getting some additional chlorophyll. But I think overall they're pretty much the same. Nutritional wise, there's not much of a difference there. In all the research that I've done, there's nothing that really calls out which one is better than the next. I think they all have, again, the same levels of nutrients and really do the same thing across the board, which is, giving everybody a sense of well-being.
Right. And I think there's not that much research, like science studies on it, but it's been around for hundreds of years. So I feel like it's like just starting.
Yep. It's still like, for instance, I'll give you, and I haven't really made a lot of, a lot of posts on this, but where our sea moss is grown, it's in, the waters have a pH level of 9. So it's pretty alkaline water. So you're already having a nice level of good quality water that the sea moss is growing in, and the waters are crystal clear. Like there's no pollution in that water. You could see your toes as you're in, you're pulling the sea moss out of there. So it's like you said, it's a new space, and I think there still needs to be some more research, or at least findable research.
Right. You say like to avoid getting sea moss from, people ask me all the time, why is this place in St. Lucia the best? And I say because it has like the cleanest waters, and I mean I just get the best energy from you guys too, and I truly believe like that's put into like food, everything, like really incredibly important people that make the product. Like it can't be, coming from like a random source. Like truly, I find it's important, but like besides that, like in terms of location, like
I think, and I don't want to sound like, horrible or anything, but I think like waters in Asia are pretty polluted. There's a lot of sea moss coming from Vietnam and the Philippines. But I think that their waters are highly polluted. Philippines has a severe plastic issue, right? So you could see some photos of the Philippines where like there's just rivers of plastic. There's areas in Africa. I'm not too familiar with what their waters look like and how their sea moss markets are. So I'm not too familiar with that either. I think it's just really researching the pollution in those areas and whether or not those waterways are good or clean enough, because it's almost like eating food from the market that hasn't been grown in top quality soil. You're not going to get the same level of nutrients that when it's grown in a good quality soil or environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most important thing is to make sure that the quality of the water is good, that your source and you build a relationship with them, because there is, it's a big industry right now, and there are people that aren't always super honest about where they're getting the sea moss, how it's handled. for us, it's, we're supporting our family in St. Lucia. We're supporting a small CMOS economy, that's out there or in that village. And that we're also really hands-on from, the distribution to the selling of the product.
Right, and that's amazing. And I feel like also I've noticed, like I've tried, I don't want to like throw any other companies like under the bus, but like I've noticed like I can tell when the product's been or they've added preservatives to it because I've tasted most of our customers and like ours, I don't add like any preservative or it's not heated at all. It's like actually made in like very small batches in the blender so that it doesn't overheat in the blender.
Yeah, yeah, you have to be careful to do that too, because once that, yeah. So I'm gonna ask you, so you soak yours in lime too, right?
Mm-hmm. Soaked with the lime.
And that obviously preserves the sea moss. But what I was just reading an article or someone posted something on one of the groups that I'm in where they're looking to add food preservatives like the citrus, the citrus that they sell in the store to preserve the sea moss. And I was like, no, just leave it alone.
Yeah, so apparently if you add like a certain amount to the actual sea moss and it goes past like a certain pH, preserve it for like 6 more weeks or something. But I'm just like not even because
Yeah.
the product is so alive and it's meant to just last like the 4 to 6 weeks. But then, I mean, if you wanted to last it, but I really don't think that it should be something that's messed with. It should be in its beautiful, like most natural form.
I agree. I agree. We have there's some people like to add like fruit in it, do the infused sea moss. But one thing about the infused sea mosses with different fruits is that it goes bad quickly. So it doesn't last that long.
I actually ordered like a strawberry one off of Etsy just to try it, and it like went bad in 2 days, like after I opened it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just because of the fruit just doesn't stay good.
Nope, the fruit doesn't. You have to cook it. You have to cook the sea moss in order to keep the fruit.
Oh,
If you and I don't like we're the same as you. We don't cook the sea moss. We soak it in lime or lemon and then we blend it in the same way, small batches just so it doesn't overheat.
right, right. So what is the difference between, because I like when I was first learning like how to make it back in like 2019, 2020, I saw like some people did boil it like at the beginning, which I wasn't sure of like, is that to extend the shelf life or is it to,
Well, I think it's like different like customs of making it. Like I said, in the Caribbean, a lot of people cook it, but we don't. And for us, it was more or less to keep it in its natural state and to make sure that it was raw and we didn't cook out the element, the minerals or the nutrients out of it. Just whenever you add heat to any food, it's no longer raw, and now it's you've lost some level of nutrients in the sea moss. So that was like our reason for doing it like that. But I do know that some people cook it. It is a little looser when you cook it. It lasts a little longer. I don't know if you're gonna how much nutrition you lose by cooking it. That I don't know. But I
okay,
think it's like everything else. Like if you cook kale, if you cook it too long, you're gonna lose all the nutritional value in it. So I think it's the same concept. It's just who you're talking to. If you're looking to the people who are bigger on raw food and things like that. They're gonna be the ones that eat it or consume it that way by soaking it.
definitely. And I feel like it should be up to each person.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly. I don't think there's a right or wrong,
yeah,
I think it's just up to everybody's preference. But, coming back to some of like your recipes and things like that, there's a lot of the cool, you use it in a lot of cool ways. And I get, like I told you before, I think it's super cool how you use it. But there's so many other ways. Like I know people that use it in their dough, to fluffing out their dough, pancakes, things like that. And when you're cooking it in food at that point, it changes. I guess you're not using it for just the nutritional value. It's they use it in there for more fluffiness, and like the sea moss gives it a little airiness to it. But you know, there's some really creative ways of using sea moss, and I think it's like it's a phenomenal plant.
Right. I think you were saying that your son makes pancakes.
Yeah, he makes Jamaican vegan patties, and out of the flour he adds the sea moss to the dough, and it's like a fluffier dough when you eat the patty. It's really good. But you know, you can really like I'll use it in my soups. I use it in my oatmeal. I the yoga center that I was telling you about, she's added it into her yogurts and just like mixed it around. So there's really a lot of innovative ways you could use a gel.
Definitely. And when you make like a, how much would you add to the soup? Would you add like enough for how many servings you have? What like what?
So I normally add about I don't ever go over 2 spoonfuls.
Mhm.
I think that's just the average, you know, that's just like that, you know, I guess measure like that normal measurement that normally people kind of stick to is a 2 spoon. I don't eat it more than that many times a day. So I just 2 spoonfuls and that's it. But I just add that the 2 spoonfuls into my soup, into whatever I want to thicken up, and it works. Like if I want to do like a chili that has a thicker base of a soup, I'll throw it in there and it thickens it up. So and I have my sea moss in there. Well, another way we use it is in hot tea. So like similar to your recipe that you had some warm water with the sea moss. It's the same. We do the same thing with some teas as well.
It dissolves really nicely.
It does. It does. Especially, you know, you have to add like you have it has to warm up nicely and you just stir it up, but you have your whole remedies. Now we had COVID in the middle, right at the beginning, and we used the sea moss to really help us get it, you know, overcome it. And I know a lot of people that were really pulling the sea moss out of their cabinets when COVID came around.
I when I had COVID, I also took it, and I feel
Yeah.
over it much faster because of the
Oh
sea moss,
yeah.
especially if you, like take it on a daily basis too. It's like I'm
Yeah.
cleansing my immune system and etc.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal, like I said. Well, I think I wanted to thank you for your time. I know.
Thank you.
Let me see if anyone has any questions. Do we have any questions from the audience?
I'd love to do these more often too.
Yeah.
Like we should pick a topic and
I'm
yeah,
so down for that, especially because you're someone else who really is into sustainability. I think that's one of the areas that or the parts of the business that I'm really, focused on is talking about or creating awareness about the planet, right? And being sustainable, there's just so many levels to it, whether, we're building smaller economies, localizing the economies and things like that, or even empowering women business owners to kind of take the lead in charge in those spaces, but really creating a lot of awareness to the blue economy. There's a lot of things that we'll be seeing in the near future around the blue economy. So it's something that we're part of, right? And I think the more awareness that we can create in terms of how we can be more regenerative, more sustainable, and we could do it through the business as well. But I'm
definitely.
so
Wow.
down to
So
doing more lives with you. So
let's do it. Thank you.
thank you for joining. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Make sure you follow Anna. Her business is in our post, and I will also drop her personal Instagram on here as well.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.